Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a journey into something pretty fascinating, ancient, but also weirdly relevant right now, Gnostic Christianity. If you've ever found yourself looking into, different spiritual paths, or maybe just curious about another take on faith, well, stick around. This isn't really about religion in the usual sense, more like exploring a really compelling, often misunderstood viewpoint that lots of people seem to be rediscovering.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Our mission, if you like, is to dig into the core ideas, the unique worldview of Gnostic Christianity using the material we've got. We'll look at how this ancient path offers a very different lens on spirituality. It really does challenge a lot of the conventional ideas about faith, reality, or even salvation. So yeah, prepare to maybe rethink some things you thought you knew.
Okay, let's dive right in, because the sources we looked at make a really sharp distinction from the get-go. Gnostic Christianity, they say, is explicitly not a church, not an institution, not rituals you do. Instead, it's framed as a call to awaken. That completely changes the game, doesn't it? It's not about joining something. It's about an internal shift, a personal thing. The texts even call Gnostics seekers of truth, defenders of the divine spark, and rebels against spiritual deception. Wow. That's more like a mission statement than a membership card.
It absolutely is. It's a total reorientation. When they talk about following Christ not through ritual but through revelation, they mean turning away from, external stuff, services, sacraments, dogmas, and tuning into a direct inner experience. This view actually rejects what they often call the machinery of corrupted religion. Instead, the focus is on the voice that speaks within. That inner guidance, it's everything. And that motto, you are not lost, you are awakening. That sums it up perfectly, I think. It's about igniting remembrance, not being preached at. Like, you already know it deep down. You just need to remember.
Right. And the way Jesus Christ is presented here, that's going to be surprising for a lot of people, I imagine. He's not the head of an institution, not starting some earthly organization. No, he's described as the living pattern of liberation. Powerful phrase. So Gnostic Christianity isn't just another belief system. It's presented almost as spiritual defiance against being deceived.
Yeah.
It seems rooted in freedom, not just, following the rules of a faith. It challenges that idea of authority being outside you.
Exactly. It reframes Christ's purpose entirely. It moves it from something external, organizational, to something deeply internal and transformative. If Christ is a pattern of liberation, that implies a way to freedom, not just a different set of rules.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The core beliefs. This is what makes Gnostic Christianity so distinct. The texts say, flat out, the true God is beyond the material world. Whoa, okay, that immediately raises a huge question, right?
Yeah.
If the ultimate God didn't make this physical world, then who or what did? And what does that mean about, everything around us?
Right, and that leads us straight to the concept of the demiurge, a really key figure in Gnostic thought. Our sources explain it as a lesser being who actually shaped the physical world. Now, it's important this demiurge isn't always seen as pure evil, like a Satan figure. Sometimes it's more ignorant or arrogant, like a craftsman who thinks he's the top god, but only manages to create this flawed material reality. And this world, Gnostics see it as a place of suffering, corruption, and control systems, a place that traps souls in illusion. So yeah, that really flips your whole understanding of reality on its head, doesn't it? It suggests the world we see and touch isn't the real deal, maybe more like a shadow, or even kind of prison for the divine spark inside us. It changes how you might view everything, suffering, society, all of it.
That is radical. So if the material world is flawed, maybe even a trap, what's the Gnostic approach? Just try to escape it entirely. Is there any value here at all?
That's a really good point. It's not always about, say, total withdrawal. It's more about seeing the illusion for what it is, understanding it's temporary, flawed, and not letting it ensnare your true self, your soul. So while fixing the prison might not be the ultimate goal, understanding that others are trapped too could lead to compassion, The main thing is recognizing the walls, finding the way out, or maybe through.
Okay, so with that understanding of the world, Christ's purpose looks completely different too. The sources are clear. Christ came to free the soul, and specifically not to build empires or start a religion. How does that reshape the story for someone used to thinking of Christ as, the founder of the church?
It reshapes it profoundly. In this view, Christ's mission is laser-focused on spiritual liberation. That's it. He's seen as a messenger, right? From the true transcendent God coming into this flawed world. Why? To wake us up, to remind us where we really come from, our divine origin, and show us the path to gnosis. He's a guide, a revealer of secrets we forgot, showing us how to see through the demiurge's illusion and get free. So it's not about earthly power structures, hierarchies, doctrines. His teachings are like keys, codes for awakening the soul, not rules for an institution. Big difference.
And if that's Christ's purpose, then salvation must be something totally different as well. The text define it not as obedience, not following rules, but as gnosis. What exactly is gnosis in this context?
Right, gnosis. It's defined as direct personal knowledge of the divine. It's not just believing something because someone told you. It's not intellectual study either. It's an inner awakening, a deep personal remembrance of that divine spark inside every single soul. And what's fascinating here is the divine isn't out there somewhere you have to reach or earn approval from. It's in here, something you uncover, reconnect with. Spiritual authority shifts entirely inward to your own direct experience. It's about self-discovery, looking within. That's the path. Like finding a light switch inside yourself and finally flipping it on, remembering the light that was always there.
Okay, so if salvation is internal awakening, the soul itself must be seen differently too. The sources say the soul is eternal and its journey is one of remembrance, not fear. That's powerful. What does that journey of remembrance look like?
Well, it implies shedding illusions, layers of forgetting. The idea is the soul came from the true divine realm, but fell or got trapped in this material world and sort of forgot its origins. Spiritual amnesia. So the journey of remembrance is that process of recalling where you came from, your true divine nature, your link to the real God, not the demiurge. It means life isn't about obeying rules because you're scared of punishment or trying to earn a ticket to some external heaven. It's about remembering who you are, reclaiming that divine core, and ultimately getting back to the source. Every question, every doubt, every gut feeling, those could all be signs, nudges on that path back to remembering.
And following from that, the texts say Gnostics reject heaven and hell as taught by institutional religion. They see them as tools of control, not spiritual truths. That fits perfectly if the goal is internal awakening, doesn't it?
Exactly. If you connect it back to that bigger theme, it's all about freeing the individual from, well, external manipulation. Systems that use fear of hell or promises of heavenly rewards. Those are seen as ways to control behavior, enforce conformity here in the demiurge's system. By rejecting those, Gnosticism basically says, find truth and divinity inside yourself. Don't be swayed by carrots and sticks. The heaven thereafter is that inner state of awakened gnosis, reunion with the divine light within. Not some place you go after you die, promised by someone else.
Okay, so let's put it head to head. Gnosis versus institutional religion. The material we have draws some really stark contrasts.
Oh, absolutely. The contrast is sharp, and it really clarifies the fundamental split. One text lays it out almost like a challenge, where traditional religion might say, obey, conform, submit. Gnosis counters with, awaken, remember, transcend. Very different vibe. Or religion says, you are fallen, Gnosis replies. You are divine, but deceived. Again, a huge shift in perspective about human nature, and maybe the most crucial one. Religion often says, truth is outside you, Gnosis insists, truth is within you. These differences really highlight that move away from external authority, from dogma handed down, towards inner experience, personal revelation, your own spiritual authority. It really makes you ask, doesn't it? When things get tough or confusing, where do we automatically look for answers? Outside or inside?
It's a really profound question, and it shifts where you think power lies in the spiritual sense. Now, some listeners might hear this and think it sounds very modern, maybe even New Age mentality, but Gnostic Christianity is ancient. The sources point out it flourished in the early centuries after Christ. We have texts like the Gospel of Thomas, Pistis Sophia, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. These aren't minor footnotes. Their rediscovery, especially the Nag Hammadi library found in Egypt in 1945, completely by accident, by the way. It was like opening a buried treasure chest of spiritual ideas that challenged everything for centuries.
And it's so important to understand why these texts, the ones containing these Gnostic teachings, were banned, buried, and branded heresy. The source material is pretty direct. It wasn't because they were wrong necessarily, but because they threatened control. If you think about the big picture, it shows that classic tension, right, between institutions that want to manage truth and individual insight, which empowers people to find truth themselves. The fact these texts were suppressed for so long really tells you how threatening that idea of inner authority was perceived to be. Their rediscovery itself feels like an act of reawakening.
But it's not just ancient history locked away in scrolls. The sources emphasize, today Gnostic Christians are reawakening. People are seeing through the illusions and reclaiming Christ's message, not as a religion, but as a revolution of the soul.
Hmm.
So this isn't just a history lesson. It feels like a living, breathing thing happening now.
Absolutely. It taps into that modern hunger for direct experience, for authenticity, especially when maybe traditional structures feel lacking or disempowering for some. There's definitely a desire to look beneath the surface for something deeper, and these ancient ideas seem to offer a map for that.
And, if any of this resonates with you listening, if you've felt those tremors, question what everyone else accepts.
No.
If you've had that feeling, the world isn't quite telling the truth, but something inside you refuses to just go along with it, well, the sources suggest you're not alone. You're actually tapping into a very old tradition of seekers.
Yeah, the material is quite specific about who this path often calls to. The spiritually awake, it says, the seeker who never fit in, the rebel who still believes in truth. And finally, the remnant, the radiant, the remembering. It's kind of an invitation, isn't it, to anyone who feels that inner nudge, that sense there's more than what we're usually told. It suggests those feelings aren't weird, they're legitimate spiritual signals, and Gnosticism offers one way to explore them.
Wow, what a deep dive this has been. We've covered a lot of ground. Gnostic Christianity, not as a church, but a call to wake up. That huge shift from external rules to internal knowing, from obedience to remembering, and grappling with that really challenging idea of the demiurge, this flawed creator in a
Yeah.
material world that might be an illusion trapping souls. That's a lot to take in.
Yep.
Powerful stuff.
It really is. And as we wrap up, maybe just leave you with this thought, playing on that theme of inner knowledge, of seeing through deception. If direct personal knowing gnosis is the key to liberation, what truths in your own life, things you take for granted maybe,
Yeah.
what personal stories, societal norms, accepted ideas might be ready for a little awakening from within? What illusions might you be ready to question?